Present-Day Challenge to Prayer, written by Captain Carre. Chapter 6, being read by Peter John Parisi, also known as Brian Dean. Intercession, a continuous ministry. The prominent place given to prayer at the Hyde Convention, both before and after the meetings. The spirit of love and harmony manifested. There is no doubt that the Hyde Convention, at one time, whatever it may be now, was the most wonderful gathering of the Lord's children that ever took place, and Hyde had a great deal to do with the form it took. He was not conscious of this, but the atmosphere he brought with him seemed to affect the whole place. One felt a change coming over one as one entered the compound of the convention. It was a spirit of prayer, and when we entered into the prayer room, we understood the cause of the change of atmosphere. Perhaps I should explain what this prayer room really is. Mr. Hyde and a few others realized the necessity of preparation for the convention, and he felt that his work was to wait on God and plead for those who would attend. There are men in the Punjab who are specially endowed of the Spirit to organize such gatherings. Dr. Gordon, on whom in the old days the great burden of organizing all the departments of work fell, was so guided and helped by the Spirit that everything went like clockwork. To cater for 2,000 people is not an easy task, but the arrangements were so perfect that Dr. Gordon and all his willing assistants, including the missionary ladies that superintended the commissariat, were all able to attend the services. I remember Dr. Gordon telling me that he had really nothing to do except to enjoy the convention. He spent much time in the prayer room, and one day he took me into his little tent, and he showed me his account books, beautifully written, and everything noted down. The previous year's account had balanced to a piece, and all the work was carried on without any bustle or worry. Why do I mention these things in writing about dear praying Hyde? Because prayer had so much to do with it. Hyde and his companions were in a room on the ground praying when Dr. Gordon and his companions were on the ground putting up the scores of tents, arranging the cooking apparatus, the supply of water, and the 101 little details necessary. Hyde felt and caused others to feel that it was necessary to prepare the messages, and the tents, and the food, and the sleeping accommodations, and when others reached the ground to arrange the external necessities, he was on the ground to enter the prayer room. And for 2 or 3 days and nights, Hyde and a few others were on their faces praying, pleading, praising, and claiming a blessing. As the marquee then erected, Hyde and his party entered in at once to dedicate it to the Lord and to make the spot a real Bethel, where God would meet with his people. In the dining tent, is the dining tent in position? The praying party must be there at once so that the Spirit of God can use the meal times to bring blessing to his people. Sometimes the conversation in the dining tent destroys the effect of the messages given in the preaching tent, but in Syakot we never heard any gossip during meal times. Men and women formed parties, Indians and Europeans together, sitting at tables or in small groups on the floor eating their meal, and feasting on the fellowship in the Lord. Was there anyone in spiritual difficulties? Some brother or sister would say, "Let us go together to have a little food and talk over this great matter." And there, while eating, they realized that Jesus was with them. The meal was sanctified by his presence, and everything appeared in a new light. Someone has found the Savior, and the Lord must be praised, and a hymn or a benja is started, and in an instant the whole place is full of praise. The ladies giving out the food, the Christian waiters, as well as those who are eating, all unite in praising God. The Panjabis can sing, and the missionaries can sing too. It was in the dining tent I heard the Glory song, sung in such a way that I shall never forget, and I long to go to Glory there, and then to begin this glory life. The food was left and got cold before we could eat it, but our hearts had been warmed up by the fire of His love burning within. Had Hyde's praying anything to do with this? I do not know, but I do know that this is what he and his companions prayed for. The first day of the convention, and often on the previous night, 2 prayer rooms were open, one for men and one for women, and prayer and praise went on continually until 2 or 3 days after the convention. It is immediately after the seed is sown that the birds come and devour the seed. McCheyne Patterson always says that the time for very earnest, definite prayer is immediately after the service, or a convention is over. And Hyde believed in this, and so when others remained on the ground after the convention was over to pull down the tents, etc., the prayer room parties remained to plead that the results of the convention might be permanent. If we had more prayer in the very place at our conferences and assemblies before they commence, during the sessions, and when they are over, how different the atmosphere would be. If we only realized that there is as much need for heart preparation as there is for comfort preparation. If we could feel that this is the absolute necessity, and for some to take this burden upon them as Hyde did, what a blessing we would have. Can we not take this lesson to heart? It was Hyde's desire that this should be introduced at Keswick. In the Reverend Evans Hopkins days, he was accustomed to invite the Keswick speakers and a few friends to meet at his home for 2 days about a month before the Keswick Convention. Mr. Hyde and myself had the privilege of being with them in the year 1911, but I never heard of any praying band meeting at Keswick for some days before and after the convention. Hyde prayed for this and longed to see the Keswick room, which I think is called the committee room, being turned into a prayer room. The speakers, I believe, meet there for a few minutes for prayer before going on the platform to speak. But would it not be possible to have the prayer and intercession constantly going on in that room? There are intercessors who could take up this work. Why not do so? As he prayed, Luke 9:29, Jesus saith unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. John 4:34. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privily, Why could not we cast him out? And he saith unto them, This kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. Luke 9:28-29. In doing the will of the Father in respect of a single sinful soul, he had been renewed. And herein he seeks to train his disciples in the same method of life by imparting the secret of his strength. There is an interaction or spiritual strength in service, which means that endowment is actually increased by expenditure when the direction of the effort is the will of God. Here is the gospel of action, both in exhortation and example. Work is really the staff of life. It's a service for God and souls which alone makes the servant strong in patient endurance and knowledge. As a matter of fact, strength is acquired, not in view of each task, but as the result of doing it. In the same house of active obedience, his disciples likewise eat of the hidden manna. Reverend J. Stuart Holden. I bless God he has for some years given me an abiding conviction that it is impossible for any rational creature to enjoy true happiness without being entirely devoted to him. O my brother, pursue after personal holiness. Press towards that blessed work. Be as much in fasting and prayer as your health will allow, and live above the rates of common Christians. Your affectionate dying brother, David Brennan.